All right, people. So Tatum just admitted he had information about this case for a while now. And instead of immediately talking to law enforcement, he sat on it. Yeah. Then when he finally revealed it, right, he used it to push another narrative about Nolan.
People are messaging me and telling me that there is heavy drinking and there's cocaine involved.
Are we surprised? It's time to ask the very simple question. Is Brandon Tatum investigating the case or is he running PR? Because after this latest update, man, I got some serious questions. All right, y'all. What I want to focus on right now is how disgusting race baiting Tatum has been throughout this whole situation, right? Because when you really look at where he's going with all of this so-called insider information, and you watch how he's starting to pivot as new details come out, you start realizing a couple of things, right? You start to realize that this may not be about finding the truth for him. It might be all about protecting a narrative. Because this man literally came out and called anybody who suggested the possibility of foul play in this situation race baiters.
This kid Nolan, there's no evidence, but they interjecting this race stuff in it. And so what are you gonna do in this situation? People are gonna be less likely to want to resolve y'all accusing people of being racist.
And look, not only that, he allowed these boys to come on his platform and basically regurgitate that same message.
I wish it wouldn't have been reported as some type of race thing. I think it's really bad that like people are pushing the narrative, oh, this is a race thing. Well, obviously it's not.
Okay. If you think a black teenager can go to an island in Mississippi with a group that is majority Caucasian, not come home with that same group of people, and people aren't going to ask questions about race, you're out of your mind. Come on, bro. And then the same teenagers calling themselves his friends go sit down with Tap Dance Man, the same dude who already told everybody that bringing up race makes you a race baiter. Why are they so comfortable sitting with you, dog? I mean, you damn right potential racial motives are gonna be part of this conversation. Y'all keep acting like y'all can't understand why people have questions. That's what bothers me about this whole thing, especially when you know exactly why. Now, somewhere along the way, Tatum has basically designated himself as the guy responsible for helping these boys' image while this thing prepares to go in front of a grand jury, right? And the further he goes into this, the more details start to come out. You know, like the different scenarios, statements that don't seem to line up, questions about timelines, questions about what happened on that island. And one of the most interesting things, right, that he said in his latest update was that he received some new information about the case. Well, new to us. Apparently not so new to him.
People are messaging me and telling me that there is heavy drinking and there's cocaine involved.
Here we go. Here we go, man.
And there's a particular person whom I know this person's name. I'm not going to disclose it. I'm going to go to the police first, and then I will disclose it if it doesn't interfere in the investigation. But this person allegedly was offering people cocaine, and someone close to Nolan, one of his friends, told me that this person was offered cocaine and rejected it from this person.
I swear, man, this motherfucker get on my nerves. I mean, look, man, you know, I find it particularly disgusting when you think about what this man has been doing throughout this entire situation. Because if you're really doing investigative reporting, right, why wouldn't this be something that you investigate? Like, you're really trying to tell me that there was supposedly some mysterious person on the island offering drugs, and your first thought wasn't, who is that person? Who invited this person? Who saw him? Who talked to him? Those are like basic questions, dog. Basic. But instead of investigating that angle, what we continuously get from Race Baitum Tatum is content that seems to be designed to clear these boys of wrongdoing, right? And take all the attention away from those kids. I don't know if that's because he feels personally connected to them, or because it's just good content to him, or because it just fits the grift. But honestly, it definitely doesn't look like somebody approaching this with an open mind, bruh. See, the problem is Tatum is disingenuous, right? Which is a polite way of me saying he's a fucking liar. Remember when Tatum threw it out in the public that these boys took a lie detector test? Well, it turns out that they didn't, right? And it took pushback from Nancy Grace before he started clarifying that what they actually took was some type of test designed to measure stress responses.
Have the friends taken polygraphs?
Well, from my understanding, all but I believe one took a polygraph. And from what was told to me that they all passed. And all of the ones that took a polygraph took one without a lawyer. So from my understanding, everybody took
Why
a
do you say
polygraph
that's
test
from
but
what
one.
you understand? Did they tell you they took a poly and passed?
They told they yes, ma'am. They told me that they did it. I wasn't there, so that's why I'm saying from my understanding. They told me that all the boys except one, which is Warren, I believe, took a polygraph test. All of them did not have lawyers and did it and cooperated with police. They all took a lie detector test and passed. And it's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's not a traditional lie detector test, but it's the same theology of trying to get to if a person is lying. I don't know the name of it. It's an equivalent of a lie detector test. It's a different methodology. I don't believe it was a polygraph test. I believe they took other stressors in order to analyze if the people were telling the truth or not.
Did they take a polygraph would be no.
Oh my God.
Well, yeah,
Now here's my issue. If Tatum understood enough about that test to explain what it measured, then why the would you call it a polygraph in the first place? Because those aren't the same thing. And the words matter here, right? Especially when you're dealing with a case like this. Because when you tell the public that they passed the lie detector test, the public sees what they know a lie detector test to be. That creates a completely different perception than saying they took a test measuring psychological stress responses. Those are two completely different statements. And this is exactly what I mean, right? Tatum has repeatedly presented information in the strongest possible way when it helps the narrative he wants to push. Then he corrects it or softens the shit later, only when people start to challenge him. Then you got another situation, the situation with Nolan's phone, right? Tatum said the family was withholding it.
I haven't given over the phone to nobody, not local police or the FBI. They're getting ready to present evidence to a grand jury. They don't have a phone. You can give the phone to them the day after he died.
But the family had already said that they were waiting for a date when the phone could be examined as part of the joint investigation. Now I'm sitting here thinking, for somebody supposedly following this case so fucking closely, right? Getting all this insider information, visiting the island, talking directly to the people that were there, you got random people calling you with information. You sure do conveniently miss a lot of detail. The details you miss always seem to lean in the same direction. That's what makes people suspicious. And I gotta tell you, man, it gets even worse because nothing is more disturbing to me than this man openly admitting that he had this supposed information for a while now. And he sat on it, then made the big reveal publicly. And after turning it into content, now he wants to send it to law enforcement.
I was also told, and this person told me that it's over 100% chance that Nolan was using cocaine during this period of time.
100% chance, huh?
This person said it was 150%
150.
sure that when the toxicology comes back, that Nolan will have cocaine in his system. To think.
And this is where I start seriously questioning priorities here, right? Because if somebody tells you there's 100% chance Nolan had this substance in their system, if you're an investigative guy, right, and you're really trying to find the answers here in the facts, wouldn't your immediate response be, how do you know that? That would be my first question, because 100% is a strong statement. Are you saying you saw him consume said substance? Are you saying you saw somebody give it to him? Are you saying you saw toxicology results? What exactly are you basing this 100% certainty on? Because that shit matters. And speaking of that, we got this random letter that shows up. Since we talking about substance, right? So they said that there's a mysterious letter that showed up and this person transcribed it. Obviously it's a handwritten note, so they transcribed it here so we could just read it here. So these are quotes. Somebody wrote this. The quote is, we got to the party island, we had alcohol, I may have drank half if not a whole seltzer throughout the entire time, was worried about returning his second season and he didn't want to ruin his chances. Cell service sucks here. They're quoting and saying that Nolan may have said this. And imagine something happening to you and not being able to call out for help. Alleged quote. Nolan side eyes and dismisses the comment. Nolan snaps a photo or video of the scenery. Wyatt had been sniffing all morning, allegedly. He tries to grab the phone or tells him to put it down. Nolan jerks the phone back. This fuels what would lead to Nolan's later approximately 12 hours. Nolan was already having an inkling that he shouldn't go to the pool party later. Him and Wyatt have had animosity for a while. More so Wyatt because Nolan was laid back. He forgave easy and didn't hold grudges. He was the peaceful friend, the conflict solver in most of the social group. He had several, maybe 3, 4 separate friend groups. This letter letter is going around social media, and this person said, I'm trying to verify the source who wrote it. Now, let me be clear here. I cannot verify this letter. I'm not presenting it as fact. I'm not saying the allegations inside of it are true. But if substances are now becoming part of the conversation, I do think it's worth showing people what is circulating and asking questions about it. Now, look, if we're talking about substances, you want me to automatically believe that Nolan, an athlete who supposedly had an upcoming workout, just randomly decided on this day, yeah, tonight's the night I'm gonna do some coke. Yeah, tonight's the night. Okay, let's say maybe. People do things to surprise you, right? So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm also not just automatically accepting that explanation either. And here go where my mind go, right? Because did somebody actually see him take it? Because if somebody is out there saying, you know, with 100% certainty, that means somebody knows something. And if this letter has any validity whatsoever, again, and there's some kind of conflict happening between Nolan and somebody else on that island, then people are naturally gonna start asking other questions. Can something have been placed into a drink? This said substance? Could Nolan have consumed something unknowingly? Could somebody else have been involved? I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm saying these are investigative questions. And unless somebody can tell me, I personally watched Nolan willingly consume this substance, then I'm not treating somebody's 100% certainty like it settles anything, because it doesn't. But we can take this even further, right? Let's take it even further. Let's say in a fantasy scenario, Tatum wants people to accept that Nolan did this substance. Let's say toxicology eventually confirms that shit. Let's say the toxicology comes back and it says, yeah, it was in his system. Okay, then what? Does that mean he deserved to die? Does that explain everything that happened? Does that automatically remove every other question surrounding that night? And why did this information need to be blasted publicly before investigators even had the opportunity to examine it? Why not take this directly to law enforcement if you care so much about the integrity of this investigation? That's all I'm asking. You know why it was put out publicly? Because this is the grift show. And the message slowly starts becoming, maybe Nolan did this to himself. And we've seen this strategy before. Think about how many cases, right, involving black victims eventually turn into conversations about the victim's behavior. George Floyd, the conversation became drugs in his system. Trayvon Martin, suddenly people wanted to talk about marijuana. School suspensions, his social media photos, hoodies, everything except the central question. And look, man, this is not me saying toxicology or somebody's behavior can never be relevant. That's not what I'm saying. Sometimes it can. But there is also a documented pattern of black victims having things like intoxication, marijuana use, criminal history, mental health history, or alleged behavior elevated after they died. Sometimes in ways that families, attorneys, and commentators have argued are used to retroactively justify what happened to them. And when I see this is what I'm remembering. This is what I'm seeing. So when I see that type of conversation beginning here, I'm going to pay attention, because the question still could be, what happened to Nolan? If that was even in his system, there's still a possibility that somebody put it in his drink. Maybe that's how it got there. If somebody can't say they saw him taking it, why are we inclined to believe that? Because even after all that, with all that conversation, the question should still be, what happened to Nolan Wells? It should not be, how can we find something about Nolan that makes people care less about what happened to him? That creates two completely different conversations, man. And Tatum saying he sat on this information because he didn't want to be insensitive to the family, bruh, miss me with that shit, man. You've been insensitive the whole entire time. You've attacked the lawyer trying to get answers. You've mocked people questioning what happened. You call people race baiters. You repeatedly frame Nolan's family pursuit of answers like they somehow the problem. Bruh, these people are trying to figure out what happened to their son. Think about that. And meanwhile, your so-called investigative reporting keeps focusing on clearing the names of people involved in a situation where you yourself don't know what happened. You weren't there. I wasn't there. The internet wasn't there. But instead of keeping that same energy across the board, you keep helping these boys put the best possible perceptions of themselves in front of the public. And there's another thing that I find strange, right? How is all this information somehow finding its way to Tatum? If people really care about getting answers, why is everybody calling him? Why aren't they going directly to authorities? Why does Tatum supposedly have all this information that law enforcement may or may not have? Random witnesses, random sources, information talking about drugs, people giving him timeline, people giving him stories. At some point, you gotta ask, why him? Because he ain't law enforcement. He ain't Nolan's family. He ain't the attorney. So why does everybody connected to one particular side of this story seem so comfortable funneling all the information through Tap Dance Tatum? I don't think it's unfair. That is a very fair question. But look, here's what I gotta say. Tatum is going all in. He has shown that he's willing to platform these guys, help them present themselves to the public, and at the same time, paint the search for justice by Nolan Wells' family in a negative light. And he clearly has an issue with Ben Crump and other people associated with this case. Fine. You don't have to like Crump. You don't have to agree with every lawyer. But when that personal disdain starts to affect how you present your evidence and how you describe witnesses, how you frame the family, then people have every right to question whether you are actually neutral, dog. And speaking of neutrality, right? This next part is crazy. Because if you didn't realize, Tatum actually has a liquor brand. And it's called Verdict. And what's interesting about this Verdict brand, right, is that he promotes it on his stream, right? Let's take a look at that. So if you look over at the corner right over here, you see his brand and it's called Verdict. What's the significance of that? Nothing wrong with having a liquor company. Get your money. But this is where it starts getting interesting, right? Because if you go back to Nancy Grace's interview with one of those lawyers connected to the friends, what do you see right back here? Yeah, you can clearly see Verdict Liquor positioned in the shot. Now, I can't tell you what agreement exists between them. I can't tell you whether money exchanged hands. I can't tell you whether that placement was coordinated. So I'm not going to pretend I know something I don't. But the optics, come on, man. Come on. You have a lawyer doing media appearances defending these boys while the branded liquor associated with Tap Dance Tatum is sitting in the shot. At the same time, Tatum is using his platform to repeatedly defend them publicly. That raises a completely fair question. How objective can this coverage really be? Because now you're not just somebody talking about the case. There appears to be some level of a relationship here. And once there's a relationship, people are allowed to question whether that relationship influences your coverage of it, dog. Are you covering this because you really care about finding the answers? Or are you covering this because you lining your pockets and you trying to defend your friends? That's it. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's basic literacy, dog. And this is my entire issue, man. If you want to defend these boys, defend them. If you believe they had nothing to do with Nolan's death, say that. But stop pretending like you're some neutral fucking investigative reporter simply following evidence wherever it leads. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you picked your conclusion first. And now every piece of information that comes out is being filtered through that conclusion. If it helps the boys, headline, exclusive, breaking news for Brandon Tatum. If it raises questions about it, suddenly everybody race baiting. Everybody spreading misinformation, defamation. You can't have it both ways. It's either we wait for the evidence or everybody gets to ask questions. But look, I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. Y'all tell me what y'all think. Am I tripping? Do you think Tatum is actually investigating this fairly, or has he completely picked a side at this point? Drop a comment down below because that helps these videos circulate and keeps people talking about what's happening with this case. And if you want to help the video even more, hit that hype button for me, like the video, share it, and make sure you subscribe, all right? Because we gonna keep following this. We gonna keep asking the questions, and when new information comes out, we gonna talk about it. Till next time, y'all know the vibes. Let's go.
Take off the short nail, take off the dope, take off the Birkin bag. Take all that designer bullshit off, and what do you